Welcome to Speak Easy English. Today's story is about despair, hope, rescue, and the power of helping others. It was a cold and rainy night in a big city, the kind of night when everyone hurries home and the streets grow empty and gray. On an old stone bridge that crossed the wide river, a man named Vikram stood alone, staring down at the dark water below. His shoulders were bent, his clothes were soaked, and his heart was heavier than it had ever been in his whole life. Vikram had once been a happy man. He had a good job, a small house, and dreams for the future. But over the past year, everything had fallen apart. First, he had lost his job when his company closed. Then, unable to pay for his house, he had lost his home. His savings had run out. He had searched for new work everywhere, but no one would hire him. Bills piled up. Worry kept him awake at night. And slowly, a deep darkness had crept into his mind, until he felt that he was a complete failure, that he had nothing left, and that the whole world would be better off without him. So on that cold and rainy night, Vikram had come to the bridge, feeling that he could not carry his burdens for even one more day. He gripped the cold stone railing and looked down at the river, lost in his despair. He felt utterly alone. He believed that not a single person in all the world cared whether he lived or died. Just then, through the rain, an old man came walking slowly across the bridge. He was a simple man, poorly dressed, carrying a small umbrella and a cloth bag. He could have hurried past, as everyone else did on such a miserable night. But the old man slowed down. He saw Vikram standing there in the rain, soaked and still, staring at the water, and somehow, in his wise old eyes, he understood the danger in that quiet, hopeless figure. The old man did not rush. He did not shout. He simply walked over and stood beside Vikram at the railing, and he held his small umbrella over both of them. "It is a cold night to be standing in the rain, my friend," the old man said gently. "Would you share a cup of tea with an old man? I have a flask here, and the night is much warmer with company." Vikram was surprised. He had expected to be ignored, as he had been for so long. He wanted to be left alone. But there was such warmth and kindness in the old man's voice that he could not refuse. The old man poured hot tea from his flask into a small cup and pressed it into Vikram's cold, shaking hands. The warmth of the cup felt good. For a few moments, the two strangers stood together in silence, sheltered under one small umbrella, looking out at the rain. "I do not know your troubles," the old man said softly after a while, "and you do not have to tell me. But I have lived a long time, and I know the look of a man who is carrying more than he can bear. So let me tell you only this. Whatever has happened, whatever you have lost, this night will pass. The rain always stops, even when it feels like it never will. And the morning always comes." Slowly, the kindness of the stranger began to melt the ice around Vikram's heart. The words he had held inside for so long came pouring out. He told the old man everything: the lost job, the lost home, the endless failures, the crushing weight of his despair. He spoke of how worthless and alone he felt. The old man listened to every word, nodding gently, never judging, never interrupting. He simply listened, as if Vikram's pain were the most important thing in the world. When Vikram had finished, the old man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My friend, you have lost your job, your house, and your money. These are heavy losses, and I am truly sorry for them. But listen to me carefully. You have not lost the thing that matters most. You are still here. You are still breathing. And as long as a man is still alive, there is always a chance for things to get better. Money can be earned again. A home can be built again. But your life, once gone, can never return. Do not throw away your whole future because of one dark and rainy night." Then the old man did something Vikram never forgot. He reached into his small cloth bag and took out a little of his own food and a few coins, which were clearly all he had. "I am a poor man," he said, "and I do not have much. But what I have, I will share with you. Come with me out of the rain. My home is small, but there is a dry corner and a warm meal in it for you tonight. Tomorrow is a new day, and we will face it together. You do not have to carry your troubles alone anymore." Vikram looked at the poor old man, who had so little and yet was offering everything he had to a complete stranger. And in that moment, something changed inside him. He realized that he was not alone after all. In the coldest, darkest hour of his life, a kind stranger had stopped and listened and cared. That single act of human kindness was like a tiny light in the deepest darkness, and Vikram clung to it. He stepped back from the railing. The tears that fell from his eyes now were not only tears of pain, but also of gratitude. That night, the old man took Vikram to his small, humble home. He gave him dry clothes, a warm meal, and a place to sleep. And in the days that followed, he gave him something even more valuable: hope, encouragement, and friendship. The old man, whose name was Hariprasad, helped Vikram find his strength again. He spoke with him each evening, reminding him of his own worth. He even introduced Vikram to a friend who owned a small workshop and was looking for an honest worker. Slowly, step by step, Vikram began to rebuild his life. He started working at the workshop, and he worked hard and well. With time, he earned enough to rent a small room of his own. The darkness in his mind began to lift, replaced little by little with light and hope. He never forgot that he owed his very life to the kindness of one stranger on a rainy bridge, a poor man who had nothing and yet had given him everything. Years passed, and Vikram's life grew good and full again. He worked his way up until he owned a workshop of his own. He married, and he had a family, and he knew a happiness he had once believed was lost forever. But through all his good fortune, he never forgot that cold and rainy night and the lesson it had taught him. And so Vikram made a promise to himself, a promise he kept for the rest of his days. He decided that he would be, for others, the stranger that Hariprasad had been for him. Whenever he saw someone in pain, someone struggling, someone who looked lost and alone, he would stop. He would not hurry past. He would offer a kind word, a listening ear, a warm meal, a helping hand. He gave work to those who had lost hope. He sat and listened to those who were carrying heavy burdens. He reminded the despairing that the rain always stops and the morning always comes. After many years, Vikram searched for the old man who had saved him, hoping to thank him properly. When at last he found news of him, his heart sank, for he learned that Hariprasad had passed away some years before. Yet what Vikram discovered filled him with wonder. He learned that the old man had been poor his whole life, but that he had spent his evenings walking the bridges and the lonely streets of the city, looking for those who had lost all hope. Vikram was not the only life the old man had quietly saved. There had been many others, strangers who never even knew his name. He had carried his small flask of tea and his umbrella, and he had given away kindness to the broken, year after year, asking for nothing in return. Vikram wept when he heard this. And then he made a decision. If the old man could do so much with so little, he thought, then I, who now have so much more, must do at least the same. And so Vikram took up the old man's quiet work. On cold and rainy nights, when others hurried home, Vikram would walk the lonely places of the city, watching for the ones who stood alone, the ones whose shoulders were bent with despair. One such night, Vikram found a young woman standing alone at the edge of the very same stone bridge where his own life had nearly ended. She was soaked with rain and lost in sorrow, staring down at the dark water just as he had done so long ago. Vikram did not rush. He did not shout. He simply walked over, opened his umbrella over her, and offered her a warm cup of tea from a flask he now always carried. "It is a cold night to be standing in the rain," he said gently. "Would you share a cup of tea with me?" "The night is much warmer with company." The young woman, startled by the unexpected kindness, slowly began to speak. She told Vikram of all that had gone wrong in her life, of how alone and hopeless she felt. And Vikram listened to every word, with patience and with love, just as Hariprasad had once listened to him. When she had finished, he told her, "I know exactly how you feel, for I once stood on this very bridge, in this very despair. A stranger saved my life that night, simply by stopping and caring. Now let me do for you what he did for me. Whatever you have lost can be found again. You are not alone. Come out of the rain, and let us face tomorrow together." That night, Vikram helped the young woman rebuild her life, just as he had once been helped. And as he walked home in the rain, he felt the old man walking beside him in spirit, smiling. The kindness of one poor man had not ended with his death. It had passed on, from heart to heart, like a single candle lighting 1,000 others in the dark. Many years later, an old and successful Vikram was asked the secret of his good and generous life. He smiled and told the story of the stranger on the bridge. "One rainy night," he said, "I had given up on everything. I believed that no one in the world cared whether I lived or died. And then a poor old man, who did not even know my name, stopped to share his umbrella, his tea, and his kindness with me. He saved my life, not with money, for he had none, but simply by stopping and listening and caring. He taught me the most important truth I know, that you never know the battle another person is silently fighting, and that a single act of kindness, freely given, can pull a drowning soul back to life. So stop for the ones who are struggling. Listen to them. You may be the only light they have in their darkest hour." And that is the story of the stranger on the bridge. A story that reminds us that we never know how heavy another person's burden may be, and that the smallest kindness, given freely to a stranger, can save a life and light a flame that will pass from heart to heart for generations.